What's going on, everyone? Chris back again with episode 24 of What Could Have Been in Wrestling. This week, I'm actually talking about AEW. Yeah, first time ever. And the topic I want to look at is, what if Cody Rhodes had won the AEW title at Full Gear in 2019? So let's look at how that could have changed a lot of things. First off, obviously, Cody was going up against the champion at the time, Chris Jericho. And the big statement Cody had made leading up to that they defined as a career-altering decision, and it definitely was that if Cody didn't win the AEW title, he would never challenge for it again. Now, that led to a lot of speculation of would it just be a quick title change? Are there ways to work around it if he loses, etc.? And from my viewpoint, I think really a big thing about that announcement was he wanted to show that, especially since he didn't win, obviously, that he wasn't going to utilize and leverage his position as an EVP with the company and be their version of Triple H in WWE or Double J in TNA, and really just make himself champion and prop him up to be the top guy while also being part of the office. So that's how I looked at it, and how I think it was about building other stars and not just making himself the focus. But from the time that he did it, I really felt he was making a mistake, which I think I was proven right about. So going into it, obviously, they had a really good build, and Jericho and Cody, they did face at Full Gear, with Cody losing after MJF threw in the towel on his behalf. And to his credit, Cody never challenged for the world title, for the AEW world title again. Now, instead of him losing it, in this situation, with him winning, I think it opens a lot more up to his career, and I think it obviously keeps him more in the limelight, which they definitely needed at the time, because to me, he was the top star of that company and the face of that company. And I think it is important that, obviously, especially for your babyface, the top star, to be your champion at some point. So, if Cody does win it there, I think instead of obviously him going right into his feud with MJF, who again had cost him the belt, he comes out on the next Dynamite, and I think obviously he acknowledges MJF for helping him be in his corner to help him win, after he probably pins Jericho with a crossroads. And then actually I think the first person he gives a title shot to is Darby Allin. Reason being is because Darby had a small feud with Jericho already. Cody and Darby had wrestled to a time limit draw earlier in the year. And much like CM Punk wanting Darby Allin to be his first opponent when he returned to wrestling, that night, actually, I believe it was on Rampage in August of 2021. I think Cody would look at Darby as one of the real faces of AEW, and he would grant him his first title shot. And I think, obviously, it would be kind of hotshot booking because there wouldn't be a lot of build to it. But then again, that's what Tony does. And I think they would have actually had a title match the next week on that Dynamite. So you can have Cody face Darby for the AEW title. Cody, I think, should win, obviously, because that's his first title defense. But right after that, Chris Jericho, now the former champion, can attack Cody and stake his claim wanting a rematch. The newly formed Inner Circle can also interfere in attacking Cody, while Cody would have his backup in the form of the Elite with the Young Bucks. Kenny Omega was still, I believe, I know he had feuded with Moxley at the time, so I think he was more focused on that still. But along with the Young Bucks from the Elite, I think MJF, because in this situation, he doesn't turn on him yet. He has Cody's back to ward off the Inner Circle. And I think actually what you can do is have Cody get on the mic and challenge the Inner Circle to a match he had alluded to in his lead up to Full Gear. When leading up to Full Gear and talking about the Inner Circle, he had said that the Elite, himself, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, had been looking for guys to pair off with and match up against. And he did say eventually the Elite and the Inner Circle would clash. And he said when they do, it'll be a match beyond. And yes, if you do, old school fans will know, that was what they called the original War Games in NWA and WCW. So from there, I think actually, even though it's very young in the company, and I don't know if they would have gone right into big gimmick matches yet, you can still have Cody challenging Jericho, and it could be a match beyond or not. It could be a War Game style match, which they now do as Blood and Guts. But you can actually have them still have at least a no-holds-barred 10-man tag match, where it is the Inner Circle versus Cody, the Young Bucks, MJF, and Darby Allin. Because Darby can play off his feud, again, that he had with Jericho in the early days of AEW. With that match, because again, they weren't doing pay-per-views monthly, and the stipulation can be if the Inner Circle wins, then Jericho can get his title rematch. So from there, having that match beyond, or obviously just a 10-man tag match that's no holds barred, like what they do with Stadium Stampede. From there, that's when I think MJF, so the MJF turn on Cody, I don't want to say heel turn because he was still operating like a heel, but his betrayal of Cody can then happen in this 10-man tag, in this 10-man match. You can have it where MJF has the chair, and while it looks like he's about to come to Cody's aid, he instead nails Cody with it. And then, obviously, he walks out on his teammates and solidifies himself now as one of the top heels in AEW. And now the Elite are outnumbered 5-4, with Cody now being compromised because of the attack with the chair. The Elite now can be getting beaten down, not really getting any offense in for several minutes. And with Cody being laid out, the Young Bucks can actually be the ones who stops the match. And that would make the Inner Circle the winners of this brawl. So from there, this would then give Jericho his right to a rematch. Jericho and Cody then can build up and obviously build up their rematch. And again, their next pay-per-view wasn't until, I believe, February of 2020. So now we still have some time because Full Gear was, I believe, in early November of 2019. So now going into the holidays, we can have Jericho versus Cody in a rematch for the title. This time with Cody as the champion. Cody can be in control of the match, but then, just to screw him over one more time, MJF can interfere. He can low blow Cody, which would lead to a Jericho Judas effect, basically knocking Cody out. And then you can have Jericho have Cody, in the walls of Jericho. And Cody doesn't tap out, but he's passed out, which would still make Jericho now a 2-time AEW champion. From there, the final scene of Dynamite can then be MJF standing over a fallen and beaten Cody Rhodes. Again, taking in all the boos. And obviously giving Cody the direction for his next feud. So you can still move ahead with Cody now shifting his focus to MJF. But you can still have him going after Jericho out the week after on Dynamite as well. And obviously, when they're both in the ring, you can have obviously MJF, and Jericho both in the ring. And you can have them celebrating how they got one up on Cody. But now Cody can still lay claim to a rematch because he got screwed out of the belt. He's allowed to challenge it for the title again, so that can be in the back of people's minds. And he's now going to focus, though, his anger and his hatred on MJF for now. So again, it would just be like a short-term alliance, like I said, with Jericho and MJF, basically revealing that they were in cahoots and that MJF helping the Inner Circle win that 10-man brawl will down the line give him a shot at Jericho's AEW title. So of course MJF is only thinking of himself. And it's perfect because it fits his character. So, going back to Cody now focusing on MJF, he can go after MJF on Dynamite, but of course still, Wardlow can make his debut as MJF's heater. And still leading up to it, I still think you can do the same kind of build because this was still a very focused on an important feud in terms of the time that it got and attention that it got. You can still have MJF naming his stipulations, telling Cody that he gets to give him 10 lashes, and MJF saying, Cody, you can't touch me until Revolution. Even though it's starting a little bit later, a few weeks later, maybe even a month at most, I still think you have enough time within that 5 to 6 week span to do a good build-up. You can still have the lashes, which I think is one of the best segments still in Dynamite history, where MJF gives Cody 10 lashes with Cody's own belt, that he has to go through that and endure that to get the match. And then I think also at the same time, you can still have Jericho mocking Cody that he's got his belt back, but you can still keep that feud alive a little bit in the back of people's minds, because now again, Cody is not prohibited from challenging for the AEW title. Going forward as well, considering we're playing off MJF and Cody's history, and with Cody originally being a mentor to MJF, even though MJF was a heel, Cody saying, though, even though he was a bad guy, he was my bad guy, I still think the match, again, would have gotten the same kind of attention, and it would have still felt like a very important match. So now that we are, as the weeks go by, and Cody has to go through all these obstacles, and also taking on Wardlow in a cage, and having to win that to get to MJF, I think you finally get to Revolution, and you get to MJF versus Cody. And I think, obviously, despite it being a back-and-forth match that I think people felt Cody should have won to get his comeuppance on the guy who betrayed him, I think in this situation, you still have MJF win, and you still have him get the pin on Cody, even though he cheats with the Dynamite Diamond Ring. But now MJF is 1-0 over Cody, and this can play into, say, Cody wins back now the AEW title, MJF has claimed to be the first challenger because he's already pinned Cody. So you can definitely move in a lot of different directions with this post-Revolution, because Cody didn't really, I guess you can say, stonewall himself not being able to challenge for the belt again because of his own stipulation and not winning. That is actually where I'm going to stop it, cap it from there, because obviously Cody's career moving forward, going with the Nightmare Factory and having them turn on him, and then Cody winning the TNT title. That all happened during the pandemic, and there were no fans, and it was very, very hard to obviously watch wrestling without much fan interaction and without much, crowd noise. And obviously it was at a very different time in people's lives. I don't really care to cover much of the pandemic era. That's why this is stopping right after Revolution, because the week after there was one more Dynamite with fans after Revolution, because I remember Jon Moxley had become champion after beating Jericho. But then after that, then the world shut down and there were no fans, and they were performing in front of, 20 people who were all active members of the roster. So since there isn't much for me to cover there, and not really wanting to get much into those kind of shows, that's where I'm going to end it. But also hinting at where it could go with MJF, because Cody never even got a second match with MJF. He could have at least maybe gotten a second one. Maybe this time, again, as the reigning champion. So, looking at it, I just want to go a little bit into a side commentary. Again, going back to my original point earlier. Cody, I think, really stonewalled himself, prohibiting himself from challenging for the AEW title in the future, because it took him out of a lot of the main feuds he could have been a part of, especially when CM Punk joined the company, even though he would leave not soon after. But even working with a guy like Jon Moxley or Kenny Omega, who were champions. Because of that, I really just want to get into what I think happened, because Cody and I did go into this on episode 20 in the question and answer. I think Cody really dug himself a hole, because after that, then Cody consistently made himself the TNT champion, which was being established as the number 2 title in the company. And Cody was the first one to win it. And then he won it back. Then he won it 2 other times. And the thing is, everyone could tell, unless he formed a tag team, that was the highest he was going to get on the card. And even though he was a champion, I think people looked at it as, very, very second rate. And that he was putting himself now in a spot where he's champion. But it's not as important as the world title, obviously. And I think people felt like he was kind of forcing himself into a role where he could still look prominent, even though his feuds weren't all that impressive post-MJF. This is what I think eventually, when the fans returned in 2021, I think this is what led to the fans turning on him. I believe when he returned to WWE not soon after, I think Cody even admitted he made a mistake putting that stipulation on, saying that he couldn't challenge for the AEW title in the future. I think he admitted he made a mistake there. And I think he also, especially when CM Punk joined the company, I think he saw his spot slipping away. And since he couldn't put himself in a main event role, again, challenging for a title, I think he didn't really see a good avenue for him to regain the position he once had at the very start of the company, like I said, where I feel he was the face of the company. Because going back to the pandemic era, when the first AEW show opened with no fans, the first face you saw was Cody speaking about the situation with COVID. So a lot of this, as much as I hate to say it in his case, was Cody's own undoing in terms of what happened with AEW. I think he went from thinking that he could be there lifelong, because he did have that promo saying that AEW was Ellis Island for wrestlers, and that there was freedom here, to, of course, going back to the WWE, but in his defense, being their top guy, their top champion. But had he not done that, I think actually his run in AEW could have been longer than just, 2 years and some change. He even was, like he said, working without a contract. He did confirm that was true. And in his final promo in AEW, he even hinted that he was possibly looking for a contract extension, though Tony didn't send him, he said, the contract he wanted when talking about a match in a contract with a match against Sammy Guevara. And of course, Tony choosing not to roll over Cody's contract for one more year like he did with the Young Bucks and Kenny, I think also Tony has responsibility in Cody leaving as well, and things not totally working out how they could have. So that's really where I'm going to leave it. Like I said, no shade on Cody because things have worked out way better going back to the WWE than they were going in AEW. And I think, especially backstage influence, I think AEW now misses him. Especially going back and watching some of those beginning episodes. The product was way hotter and just the stories felt more important than they do now. Because we all know when we can see that AEW is just in a rut. And I don't know how they could get out of it. And I think having someone like Cody behind scenes could have helped. Having that role, I think Cody, looking at it where he originally had that role as a wrestler, like his father, but also being Office, I think while it didn't look like a big deal at the time, I think that actually now, Cody not being AEW has had a very, very bad effect, a very negative effect for their product, and I think the best wrestling mind of those EVPs like the Young Bucks and Kenny is gone. And of course, other incidents, I don't think I even need to explain what, but other negative incidents haven't helped AEW's cause and AEW's obviously popularity either. So again, let me know what you think. Again, I hate to cut it short and only cover those first few months of AEW, but again, we went right into the pandemic era, and it's just hard to talk about those shows because there was just with no fan interaction, I feel like there's so much missing in terms of what could make a good wrestling show. And this goes for both AEW and WWE, not just AEW exclusive. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you think Cody should have won originally a Full Gear and should have been the champion even for a short time. Let me know if you think, obviously, what could have happened if Cody was still with the company, or what if even Tony had rolled over his contract for that one more year, and how that could have changed wrestling. So thank you to everyone for the support. Again, besides leaving your comments down below on this topic, let me know what other topics you want me to talk about, and I'll be sure to address them. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. And I'll be back soon with more content, more match analysis as well. And I really appreciate everyone's support. Thanks a lot, guys.